W. Spousal abuse, physical, mental, emotionally, financially, narcissistic. Suicide. Mental illness. TLDR. An affair saved my life from committing suicide. My ex-husband was extremely abusive. The guy I met helped me see I deserved better. No longer in abusive relationship. Still with the other man 8 years later. Obligatory first official post. I hope this is the right place to post this. I first wrote this as a comment on r/aswomen and the positive response was overwhelming. Many said that they needed to hear this. So, hang on, this is going to be a very long ride. I had an extramarital affair. Never did I think I would do something like this. Please don't judge me until you've read my story. My ex-husband was emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically abusive and very controlling. He isn't just a narcissist, he has the full-blown mental illness and is a textbook psychopath and a sadist. He controlled all of our finances and I could not access my own money. I never knew how much was in my bank account. That's what kept me from leaving him. I was terrified of him. He collected guns and was always armed in the house. If I came home early I was afraid he would shoot me. He and my grandmother, yes you read that correctly, she also raised me and is also a narcissist control freak. She punished me for leaving him, had me convinced that I could not make it and live on my own. I have several mental illnesses and he made them worse. It was severe enough that I ended up in a mental health facility for 2 weeks. My ex was an emergency room nurse and he did not believe in mental illness. I was so worn down that I started planning my suicide. I had a plan and a timeline. The only thing holding me from doing it was that I couldn't decide on if I was going to leave a note. Then I met a guy at work. He was silly, made me laugh, we had fun together, we talked for hours. My ex never spent time with me or made the time together miserable. I was so lonely. But this guy made me so happy. Then I slept with him and it was amazing. My ex was horrible in bed. I never understood that a person needs physical contact and I was starved for it. Also, I did not know that interaction with people was a basic need. I was raised to believe that it was a personality defect. When I expressed this to my narc grandmother, she got beachy with me and said, "You've always been alone. You should be used to it by now." A note before I continue. I was severely abused, neglected and manipulated for my entire life. I could write a ducking book. Another story for another day. At that point in my life everyone had abandoned me. So I figured this guy would eventually leave me. Since I was going to kill myself I figured I had nothing to lose. When it ended I would do it. The universe moves in mysterious ways. The relationship kept improving, I was getting happier, the most happiness I had ever felt, and I was becoming mentally and emotionally stronger. I couldn't understand how something that brought me so much joy could be wrong. I told my piece of shit ex to duck out of my life. At this point, I was strong enough that even if this relationship ended I could make it on my own. Guess what? That guy, we've been together for 8 years and we still love each other so much. One of these days we will get around to getting married. To those of you who have stayed with me, thank you. I have done a lot of research into narcissistic abuse and emotional abuse. I have a ton of stories, some of them are even funny. If anyone is interested I will happily write and answer questions. Edit. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful comments. I tried to respond to everyone but I'm sure I missed a few people. It makes me happy to know that there are so many others in my situation. I can't say this enough, it's not your fault. You deserve to be loved. You are enough. Backstory: my grandmother grew up dirt poor. The eldest of 13 children. All of her life she fought to make ends meet. She and my mother are known for doing things that many would be shocked, lots of stories there, or overlooking abusive or illegal activities to ensure they keep money. This goes more than just basic desire to make ends meet. Both my mother and grandmother were control freaks. My ex was born and raised in the Philippines. He had very little for most of his life. He immigrated to the US and became a registered nurse and worked in the emergency room. I was a physical therapist assistant, and together we made over $100,000. In my grandmother's eyes, I had everything she could have ever wanted: big house, nice car, nice jewelry, travel, etc. I had told her about the abuse for years. She would tell me to stop complaining because, at least you have a man that works. Your grandfather wouldn't even do that. I told her I wanted to leave, and she told me that I would not be welcome to come home. She has been saying shit like this for years. It wasn't just one conversation. Note, he controlled all the money. Also, I've been NC with my mother for almost 20 years. My dad lived over 500 miles away with his girlfriend and her daughter in a single wide trailer. There was nowhere to go. NGM saying I couldn't home hurt more than anything. Once I finally left, I didn't plan on telling her until I was settled and was making it on my own. My ex didn't want people to know about the divorce, and we both agreed to not tell anyone. Yeah, he was a monster. He wrote a letter to my grandmother and told me about it after it had been mailed. I was forced to call her tell her about the divorce. Kay crying and screaming. She said, "Why are you doing this to me?" Wait, what? She decided to punish me by not talking to me when I would call. It would have been better if she just ignored my calls. She would just answer the phone and say nothing. She allowed my ex to come down and stay with her in Florida for 2 weeks with my dying grandfather. She even talked about letting him live with her. I couldn't go home, but she wanted my ex to live with her even after knowing all that he did. Duck her. He didn't live with her, and after long enough of punishing me decided to talk to me again, as if nothing had happened. Sadly, this isn't the story of how I went NC with her. Sorry for the long reply. Comment 1. I appreciate this story so much. I was married to an abusive alcoholic for over a decade. I grew up with a profoundly abusive and narcissistic mother, which set me up for abusive relationships as an adult. But I got away from it all. I went NC with my mother many years ago, and then I left my toxic marriage a few years ago. My life is so much better. There are all kinds of things that can help us to find our strength to get away from our abusive situation. Sometimes it's a supportive friendship, sometimes it's getting help through therapy, and yes, sometimes that inner strength comes to you in the form of an affair that breaks you out of your codependency on your abusive partner. I'm glad that something gave you the strength you needed. Comment 2. I really empathize with the final straw day in my marriage to a verbally, financially and emotionally abusive man, was the day he screamed in my face as loud as he could in front of our small children and our nanny, in response to my youngest daughter asking him why he was cross at me, that, "Mummy is a ducking stupid cow." Up until that point, the abuse had always been without witnesses. I emotionally checked out of my marriage after this and stopped trying to figure out how I could please him. 2 months later, I met a wonderful man and slowly started an affair with him. Like I'm convinced this saved me and gave me the strength to leave my husband. When I told him I was leaving him, my ex-husband escalated to physical violence, including spitting in my face on numerous occasions. I did feel that I was being harshly judged by those who don't know me so well, including work colleagues and particularly by my ex-parents-in-law, who up until then, I had a good relationship with. They sided with their son, as they believe he can do no wrong. Like my ex was a master at playing Mr. Nice Guy. However, I did get a lot of support from those who knew me well, which helped lessen the guilt I felt about starting an affair. 5 years down the line, I am very happily remarried to the man who saved me, and we've just had a baby of our own. I've largely shaken off the guilt I felt. Why should we judge someone for escaping abuse however they can? Comment 3. He hid his problems very well. To everyone else, he was charming, generous, and the perfect husband. This is the type of monster he is. A homeless man came into the ER and was being difficult. My ex got pissed off and took the man's shoes and put lubricant in them. He laughed as he told me this story. He said, "It's like I came in his shoe." Horrified, does Stephen began to cover how I felt. If someone disrespected him, he would find ways to cause them pain. I would have reported him to the nursing board, but I had no proof. He has no redeeming qualities. Another story. A patient came in and was saying horrible things against Jesus Christ. So my ex made sure to cause this kid unnecessary pain while putting in an 4. I got him for you, Jesus. Just wow. Comment 4. People like him need/feed off of your fear, anger, guilt, etc. You cut off their supply of energy. I did the same thing. I just permanently checked out. When I came home from work, I would go directly upstairs and not even greet him. We had separate bedrooms. I treated him like he treated me. He didn't like it at all. I kept moving away emotionally. Next thing I know, he's trying to take me to fancy restaurants, day trips, gifts, anything he could throw at me to love bomb me into giving him control again. I brushed it all off. He was the one that finally said it's over. With a narcissist, you have to make them believe that it was their idea. Congrats on getting engaged. You deserve to be happy. I'm happy for you. Comment 5. As I read your post, my only thought was that this could have been written by me because it parallels my own experience so closely. I have a post history full of stories of my ex Justnoso, the Scrooge, and his years of emotional abuse. I sought affection and validation outside my marriage as well because I was desperate for just a little bit of attention. I found it in a friend that I had been introduced to by best friend at the time. He was charming, he made me laugh, and he gave me hope of a better life. I will be the first to admit that cheating in any circumstances is wrong, but this relationship most certainly saved my life. We did continue to see each other for a little over a year after I left my ex-husband. Ultimately, we did eventually break up and I started to see the misogynist narcissist that everyone else saw. But even with all the pain he caused, I have to give credit where credit is due, that he saved me.
Thanks you for watching Everyday New Movies. See you soon.